Trying so hard. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Sure. That's and literally not from the dinner, like. I was like, why? And then you just wasted, like. There's that joy. Yeah. I think just now. Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay. 5 minutes. The computer has no. Like, it took us so great that it's. So very different. I didn't know the computer and stuff like that. Just. She's. I'm working. And you. Stop it. That's because I would. GPA. This girl. She She don't even know. Sometimes she tells me. She's doing that. So better. She's a good discussion. When you listen, happens the numbers are. That I should say. She didn't get it. She's Sure. I'm sure that she's like, no, there's no one else. She's like, who does that? I like that. Sorry. Oh my God, no. Okay,
Project three is open now. Project two was due Sunday and then respond to at least 2 people by Wednesday this week. The ones I've graded so far were awesome. Project three, a lot of the graphs we did last class, that's what you're going to be doing on a slideshow. But you have to gather your own data, whether you want to do it as a survey or search for data, because you can gather data on the internet. You were going to do it in sports and you wanted to take the top 25 tallest basketball players, you could do it on that. There is a project for the homework to make sure you are on the correct thought process or that it will work. I want to know what is the qualitative data that you're going to research and how will you gather it? And then what's the quantitative data? Remember, qualitative is not a number, quantitative is, and I just want to make sure you're on the right track before you try and gather it. If you want to do a questionnaire, you can't do favorite color, but say you wanted to do favorite color, you can make the questionnaire ahead of time. Friday, when we're doing group assignment, you could pass it around and ask everyone, whatever it is, you could do, favorite place to eat, type of ice cream, things like that. It can also be stuff you research. That is up to you. Quantitative needs to be numerical, for instance, a person's age. So if you want to do it in a questionnaire, you can. A lot of students do ice cream, so I wouldn't do ice cream. But what they do is qualitative, they ask favorite ice cream, and quantitative, how many times a week do you get it? Something like that. Or favorite place to get coffee, flavor of coffee, how many cups you drink a day. Things like that you can ask. You can also research though, for instance, sharks, there's all kinds of data on sharks, and you can see during Shark Week, how many of each type of shark were spotted. So then how many of each type, that's qualitative, because your answers would be the great white, hammerhead, whale shark. Quantitative could be the weight of the sharks or the length of the shark. Doesn't have to go together, that's up to you. In the fall, this landed around Halloween, and one student did one, it was really good. She did favorite candy bars and then cavities. So, I mean, think about your major, what your interests are in, you can have a lot of different things. A lot of times what happens is student goes to that ChatGPT and gets 25 different ideas rather than, it's good to use. Let me show you. Okay, so if you go under Oakwood Project. We have qualitative data. Qualitative, favorite candy bar, what's your favorite band, 25 sharks spotted during Shark Week. Those are all possibilities. Sometimes what happens though is you get too many, because you think if we went around here and asked 25 people their favorite band, I could get 25 different answers. So that means your bar graph's gonna just be 25 little bumps. So you want to try and get it where you're only getting maybe 5 to 7 answers. If there's too many possibilities, then have them choose. You could go with country, you could go rock, you could go the top 5. bands and seasons, each person's favorite. Doesn't matter to me. Favorite candy bar, that's another one where there could be a lot of possibilities. So maybe you pick the 5 and then they choose from that group. So if there's too many different possibilities, favorite NFL quarterback, there's a lot of them. So pick the top 5 or what you feel is it. Any questions on that? So you don't want a lot of different answers. If you asked what type of pet a person has, you're probably not going to get too many different ones, so you wouldn't have to say cat, dog. You don't want something where you're only going to get 2 answers though, so don't ask a yes or no question because then you only have 2 bars. Think about your pie chart, it would only have 2 sections. So you don't want a yes or no, but you don't want too many. Any questions on that? So that would be your qualitative. Quantitative data. It needs to be numerical. You could pick 25 states and do their population. A lot of things with different states. What is their average temperature in? But you can take the same numerical data from all 25 states. Well, you pick 25. You don't need to do all of them because you only need 25 for the project. The age of 25 people, the mileage of the car. So you could ask 25 people what type of car they have. Although you could end up with too many, maybe you want to do model or like Chevy, Dodge, rather than the exact type. And their mileage. Any questions? So for the next project, you're going to get 25 qualitative data, just like we did Friday, make the bar graph and the pie chart and talk about it. And then quantitative, you'll make the histogram and the box plot. Any questions? So if you go to the slide, this is the PowerPoint to help with homework. Right here, I put a link because last semester I had people actually turn this in. You go to chat.openai.com, or if you open this PowerPoint, help with project 3 homework. The 3rd slide, just click on here and it will take you. When you log in or sign up, it's free. And then you just put a question. There's a list of qualitative. Now, you don't want to do all of these, you want to do one of them. I had students turning in, oh, I'm going to do a project on all 25 of these. No, just one of them. Notice they put color, texture, taste, smell. Some of them would be a little harder to do. Like really any. But you could have an object and then ask people to move. I don't want the taste. what they like taste wise, sweet, sour, bitter, that would work. But most of these, one person did emotions. And they had a picture of the sun and it was a real shiny, beautiful day and they asked emotions. You could do something like that. Yeah, these are not. I'm not bringing up very many. Oh, this one is physical characters. I put qualitative data on animals and you could, what kind of pet do you have or the size of the pet? But it's just meant to give you ideas. So then you can think about something that you like and see, like this one, physical characteristics. That's a lot of things you want to do. So you could do what type of pet you have, or you could talk to 25 people who have a dog and say, what size is it? Or what type of coat does it have? Things like that. Now, quantitative, it comes up better. It's just that I had probably a third of my class turn in the whole list, and I just don't want you to do that. So quantitative, it gives you better ideas. The height, the weight, the temperature. You could, well, I did say that already. Pick 25 states and the average temperature during a certain month. You could take the presidents and what age they were when they started. I mean, depending on what you're interested in, income, the income of the presidents, the average income in each state, average hourly wage. You could do test scores. You could ask my students what they got on their test, but do you really think they're going to be honest? Number of items sold. If you work at a store and you're at the register, you can keep track of the next 25 people and how many things they bought. So quantitative is a lot easier, and from the AI, it does give you a lot of different ideas. So if you can get ideas, but you don't want to do all of them. You want one thing. Any questions on that? So the AI is nice, but it can't do everything. I remember when my son was showing me it the first time, I typed in your first project to see, and it's like, well, I can't make a slideshow, but I can give you ideas. It might be able to make a slideshow by now. Any questions? So as you're thinking about it, let me know. But it is a homework that's due on Sunday. If you do pick one, and then when you're trying to find the data, it's a lot harder than you think it was. Just let me know. You can, it's not set in stone. You don't have to do it that way. Chapter 7, it's not very long. I'm hoping we'll have time at the end because some students had questions on what we did Friday. But if yours is done, you can go when we get to that, if I do have time at the end. Okay, chapter 7, the co-rec is linear equations. Just a refresher to make sure you remember what they are. When you have a linear equation, you have a slope and a y-intercept. The slope is the change in the y coordinates with respect to the change in the x. It's usually written as a fraction. If you have a slope and it's not a fraction, you just place it over 1 to make it a fraction. As the x value increases, and it's usually a 1, so as the x value increases by 1, y increases or decreases by whatever the slope is. It's also called a rate of change. Miles per hour, inches per second. Per kilowatt hour, we're going to talk about an electric bill today. The other value that will be in our equation is the y-intercept. Y-intercept is the value when x is 0. It could be referred to the starting value because I'm 0. Fixed cost, initial value. Those of you who are in business, you'll work on fixed cost a lot. So the startup value. If you are going to print on t-shirts to sell, that would be the cost of the teachers, the printing machine. Those types of things, before you even start selling them, it's your startup. So it's called a fixed. If we look at the equation, y equals mx plus b, m is the slope we were talking about, and b is the y-intercept. This would be a linear equation. X and y are both to the first power. Makes a straight line. Any questions? So notice the slope is with the x value and the y-intercept is by itself. The order these are in doesn't matter as long as m is with x. So the slope is always with the variable. So if we look at this equation, y equals 2.5x plus 6, what is the y-intercept? Intercept is by itself, the 6. The slope is with the x value because it's a rate of change. And change is depending on what x is. And it's 2. This 2.5, the slope is positive, so the graph would be going upward. Second equation, what would the y-intercept be? And the slope?
Here.
-5. You do want to take the sign with you, but don't take the variable. A lot of times students bring the -5x with it, but it's just -5. That is negative, so it would be decreasing from left. Question? And how about the last one? What's the y-intercept?
300.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, negative 300.
That
300.
Make sure you take the sign with you. And then the slope. It's the decimal in front of the x. 0.00. Any questions on that? An employee earns $9.25 per hour. Is this a slope or a y-intercept? You want to think about if it's a rate, and since it's money per hour, that's a rate. A rate is a slope. Any questions on that? To rent a car for 1 day, the cost is $25 plus 15 cents per mile. So think about which one would be the slope and which one would be the y-intercept, and then you just plug them in. Which one has the rate with it?
0.15.
15 cents because it's per mile. So that makes this one the slope, the 15 cents. 25 is the starting amount when you go to rent. So it would be 0.15x plus 25. So notice if x was 0, it would cost $25. So just picking it up, $25. Then you pay per month. Is there any questions so far? A salesperson worked only on commission, earning 20% of the total amount sold. What do we do? X would be the amount sold. Is there a y-intercept? Is there a starting amount that he makes? So it's 20% of the amount sold. That makes that the slope. So it would be 0.20x. There is no amount. So in other words, if the salesperson doesn't sell anything, they're not making any money. But they make 20% of everything that is sold. Now, sometimes when you're a salesperson, maybe it'll be 300 a week plus 20% of your commission. It all depends. Make sure you know that ahead of time when you're signing your contract. I used to work for True Green Camelot, and their salespeople made, I think it was 300 a week. But then they got a certain percentage of their sales. And then bonuses if they were over a certain amount. But you do want to make sure you have that beginning amount. If you're only making commission, there's always going to be a bad week. Any questions? So with these equations, for the regular course, we'll be explaining the slope and the y-intercept. That might have a couple. If y equals 2.5x plus 6 and x is 4, what is y? So if we know what x is, just plug in. So we take the 4 and we plug it in for x. And just calculate. So we plug the 4 in, and then 2.5 times 4 plus 6 in your calculator. 16. Any questions on that? Of course, in the story problems, we'll be told what x and y is, and we won't say x equals 4. We'll say 4 is, I don't know, maybe the number of miles driven. Any questions? Y equals a negative 5x plus 20, and y is 0. What is x? So in this case, we're plugging in for y. And we've solved a few equations this way. We hadn't plugged it in, though. It was already plugged in. How would we solve this for x? The first thing we do. Subtract the 20. Because we want to get the negative 5x by itself, we want to remove the 20 first. It's a positive, so we subtract it. 0 minus 20 is a negative 20. And how do we get rid of the negative 5?
Got it.
Divided. Because we're multiplying, always do the opposite. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, 20 divided by 5 is. Any questions on that? Jim's salary is $11.50 per hour. Rate the linear equation. How much does Jim make if he works 5 hours? So first we'll get the equation. Remember, we have y equals mx plus b. Is 1150 an m or a b? Is it a slope or a y-intercept? Okay, here,
And slope.
slope. It's a rate because it's per hour, so it's a slope. We don't have a y-intercept. So it's 1150 per. And most of your jobs, this would work. Figure whatever you're making per hour times the number of hours, tells you how much you're gonna make. He worked 5 hours, so we plug in 1150 was per hour, that means your X is the hours. And so just plug the 5 in, multiply them together, 5750. My phone costs $25 and I pay a monthly charge of $15. Write the linear equation. So we're trying to find the linear equation of what's paid. Y equals mx plus b, linear equation. We need to decide whether 25 and 15, which is the slope and which is the y-intercept. Is 25 the slope or the y-intercept? Y-intercept. Because a monthly charge of 15, so 15 per month. So 25 was the fixed cost for the phone, and then $15 per month. Which means 15 per month means X is months. What is the total cost after 10 months? Where are we plugging the 10 in, for X or Y? I heard Y, but it's not Y. Y is the cost, X, because this is $15 per month, X is the month. So the 10 would go in front. $175 for 10 months. Any questions on that part? When does the total cost reach 250? Well, 250 would be here. Plug in for Y. If we were gonna solve for X, what's the first thing we would do?
Subtract 250.
Subtract the 25, because we need to get this term by itself first. 250 minus 25 is 225. And how do we get rid of the 15? And 225 divided by 15 is 15. So it would take 15 months before we reach $250. Any questions? Some students want to order shirts with their school logo. One company charges $9.65 per shirt plus a setup fee of $43. Another company charges $8.40 per shirt plus $58 fee. Go ahead and write the equations for both. So the first company, $9.65 per shirt plus a setup fee of $43. So think about which is your slope, which is your y-intercept, and your range. Anyone need the attendance sheet? Would anyone like to write the equation on the board? Or what's doing one? Or whichever you want. Which one do you want to do, the first or the second? The first. Okay, so go to the second.
Oh, no.
Put your name there and I will give you extra credit.
When does the extra credit go into the grade book, or has the extra credit that we received already gone into the grade book?
I'll have to check. I know I have it written. It'll be under, the homework section.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, push it. No. Just for her. We'll put your names. So the first one, 9.65 X plus the 43. Because it was $9.65 per shirt. X is the shirts, and that is a rate. And that's why it was a slope. The other one, same thing, $8.40 per shirt. And 58 is the startup. If you sold no shirts, you still have to pay the 58. Any questions on the equation? If you're purchasing 50 shirts, how much will it cost from the two companies? Anyone want to do those two? Just do it next to that one, it's like the equation, and then put your name and I'll get a picture of it. Did someone else, were you gonna do one or no?
I thought you. Do you want me to do one of them or both?
Oh, yeah, you could do one of
For the second one?
them. That actually is the first one.
Okay. Because I was in the third bullet.
Oh, okay, the second bullet point, so 50 shirts. You need a calculator, or you got your phone? I can't remember if I put extra credit in.
Just making.
You're getting your points.
You can add in the exam.
For the extra credit, it'll show 1 point because it doesn't let me put a 0 for extra credit. So then those who did it will it'll say 2 points, 1 point for doing it and 1 point, everyone will get a point. But it's under homework.
And whenever I get the
Okay, so for the $9.65, could have got 525. 525.50, could you plug the 50 in for X? In your calculator. And whatever you want. There. The second one should have gotten $478. Any questions? For what number of shirts would the cost be the same? What do we do to solve that? So if we want the cost to be equal, remember Y is the cost, X is the number of shirts. To be equal, the Y's have to be equal. So we could set the equations equal to each other and solve. Now, most of the ones we've solved, we only had one variable. We have two, we have to get both of them on the same side and get the constants, which would be the 43 and the 58 on the opposites. Then you like to solve them? Really, it's only one. What's the first thing we should do? You can subtract the 43 to the other side and subtract the 8.4 to the others. You take the x terms, 9.65x minus 8.4x, you will get 1.20. 58, subtracting the 43 over, you get 15. Is there any questions how I got those? To solve then, how do we get x by itself? So I want to divide by the 1 1/4. 15 divided by 1.25 is 12. So 12 shirts. If you're selling 12 shirts, either one works. Any questions on that? So a lot of times when you're working with different companies, you need to check this out because even though it costs more to start up here, it's cheaper. So if you're getting a lot of shirts, this is the better deal. If you're getting less, then this is the better. Mrs. Travis wants to have clown deliveries. Clowns R Us charges $1.25 per balloon and $6 delivery. Singing Balloons charges $1.95 per balloon and $2. If someone would like to do the equation. Okay, so write a linear equation, decide which one's the slope, which one's the y-intercept. And put your name there. The Clowns Are Fun was $1.25 per balloon and $6 delivery. Per balloon, that made it the rate, and that's why it was with the X. So it was $1.25 X plus 6. Where singing balloons was $1.95 per balloon, which makes it the rate, which is your slope. So we get $1.95 X plus 2. Any question? Okay, would somebody like to do the second part? If she needs 20 balloons, what's the cost for each place? Is there anyone who would like to do it who hasn't done it? Okay. Someone else like to take the other one? In front ones. There's someone that's only gone once that would like to. Are we plugging the 20 in for X or for Y? Yes, we're plugging in for X because this is where the rate is $1.25 per balloon. That means X is the number of balloons, so the 20 is going in for X.
What do what I'm going to do that.
Okay, so, if she needs 20 balloons, we plug the 20 up for X. Should have gotten $31. And any other 41? When you're doing these for homework, make sure you put your units when you're giving an answer, and most of it should be in complete sentences. Giving an equation, you wouldn't have to put that in a sentence, but if she needs 20 balloons, the cost will be $31 on homework. Make sure you do put your sentences. Any questions? Jerome was offered a sales job at True Green. He would make $300 a week plus 20% on his sales. Write a linear equation giving his weekly sales. Remember, you need to decide which is the slope and which is the y-intercept. So which would be the slope? The 300 or the 20%?
300.
The 20% because it's 20% of his sales, that's your rate. But you also have to remember to put 20% what as decimal. So 20% is a decimal, 0.2, you don't need the 0. Either one of them as long as you have 0.2. Is your sales and 300 a week. When you're explaining the slope, your X increases by Y. Your X increases by 1, and whatever the Y is increases or decreases by this. So in this case, it's a positive. So our slope is 0.2 or 20 cents. Remember, change in Y over change in X. X is our sales, and Y is weekly salary. As the sales increase by $1, the weekly salary increases by 20 cents. So each additional dollar that you make 20 cents. So when you are explaining the slope, the X value, which we said was sales, increases by 1. So each additional dollar in sales increases Y, which is money, by, in this case, 0.2 would be 20 cents. The y-intercept, that's when X is 0. So if nothing is sold, you get $300. When no sales are made for the week, the weekly salary is $300. So the y-intercept is the value when X is 0. Sometimes it doesn't always make sense. There's a linear equation for the number of rooms that a house has when you're selling it, the cost increases. But you're not gonna have a house with no rooms. If you're doing a problem and it doesn't make sense, just still put it. So maybe it goes up $2,000 for every room. When there are no rooms, well, it has to have a fixed. Okay, so if we have y equals 3,000x plus 25,000, and x is the number of rooms. When there's no rooms, the house costs $25,000. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to have a house without any rooms, but you still would need to be able to explain it. So if the house has no rooms, the cost is $25,000. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's what it means. So when you're doing your project and you have to explain the slope and the y-intercept, if something doesn't make sense, just explain them. So sometimes y-intercept does not make sense. In this case, it does. Any questions? I think there's 2 things. I thought there was 3 when I was reviewing this morning. There's an electric bill and taxes. When we're using an electric bill, it will have your address, your name, things like that. The Penny Penguin, One University Plaza. Then it has the meter readings. And it will have a lot of different costs. And they like to hide things, it'll be all over the place. But eventually, if you look at it, most of them do have, this is not, but they'll have the equation. But this is the cost of the electric bill, it's $8.52. And then notice the other ones are per kilowatt hour. Over here is the amount of electricity you use. Notice it's not starting at 0. When you use electric, gas, water, those meters continue. When I bought my grandmother's house, however much electricity she used, it continued, it didn't restart. Just like your car. Your car has the mileage and the mileage keeps changing, you sell it, it doesn't go back to zero. It's the same thing with these. And so if you want to find out how much electricity you used for the month, October it said 67,250. September, when they read it, it was 67,100. To find out how much you used that month, just subtract them. You take those. That tells you how many kilowatt hours they used that cycle. So if we subtract those, we get 150. So Penny used 150 kilowatt hours for that month. So just like you would if you went on a trip and came back, you'd look before you left at your mileage and look when you got back and subtract them. It tells you how much you did, how far you went, same thing. Just a continuous reading. Any questions on that? So that's gas, electric, water. They're all read that. Now, sometimes what they'll do is they'll tell you, like if after a year, they can see how much you use each month and they'll put you on a budget. And then if you go over the last month, you got to pay that. Or if you go under, then the last month you may not owe as much. That way they don't have to come out every time you read it. To find an equation for the cost, we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. In cost, I put it all together. The first one, $8.52. Notice that doesn't have a rate with it. That's your y-intercept. It's a fixed cost. The ones that are marked by kilowatt hours, those are your rates. All of those combined will give you your slope. Because they're per kilowatt hour, we would add those up to get our M. So B would be the $8.52. The rest would be your slope. So if we add 0.12, 0.15, 0.15, and 0.25, you should get 0.67. Any questions? So you'll definitely have one of these on the exam. This is your fixed amount. The ones that have the kilowatt hours add to the slope. Explain the slope from part B in the words of the problem. So our slope was the 67 cents. I rewrote it as cents and placed it over 1. So when you're explaining it, your X goes up by 1, your Y goes up by whatever the other value is, the slope. I usually write my X and Y next to it so then I know which is which. Cost is the Y value. Kilowatt hours was X because this is per kilowatt hour. Each additional kilowatt hour, so or as kilowatt hours increase by 1, cost increases by 67 cents. So you always start with X and it goes up by 1. So each additional kilowatt hour, or as kilowatt hours go up by 1, the cost increases because it's positive by 67 cents. Any questions on that? explain the y-intercept. Remember the y-intercept was the 8.52? And the y-intercept is a fixed cost, it's the value on x is 0. X is kilowatt hour. So if no kilowatt hours are used, the cost is still $8.52. So it's a fixed cost. If you left for the month, shut off all your electricity, I don't recommend that in winter, but if you shut off all your electricity, you will still get a bill for $8.52. Any questions on that? So what is Kenny's cost for the month? Well, we want to take the equation that we found in part B and take the amount of kilowatt hours, she used 150 from part A, and plug it in. So we want to find out her cost for the month. Take the equation from part B and the kilowatt hours from part A and plug it in. We use 150 kilowatt hours when we subtracted these. Plugging it into the equation, her bill for the month is $109.02. So when you're trying to make a budget or you're gonna rent an apartment or buy a house or rent a house, you can look at the previous owner's bills, so then you know how much those are cost. Or if it's costing too much, maybe you need to turn your thermostat down so it doesn't run so much, or up. Any questions? Taxes. When we're filing taxes, a couple things to know. Well, one thing, this one's married filing separately. You can also file jointly. And then though, if you file jointly on, say, Ohio, you also have to do that on federal. So they both have to be filed state, at least in Ohio. But when you're filing them, this is a chart. Now they're fixed nicer now. Notice if we were here, in this third row, it would cost $4,453.50 plus 22% of the amount that went over. So the amount that knocked you in here, the $38,700, you're still paying the interest at the lower rates. So for $9,525 of your income, you pay 10%. The next amount that would fall into the next category, you pay 12%. So if you had something that put you in the 24% range, everything you made is not in there. So if you went $1 over, you're only paying $1 in that higher rate. Okay, so the first thing I like to do then is say, what was it? Jill makes $85,000. Find out what column or row she's in. Look at the first column and look for the 85,000. So notice this column here. The fourth row is the 85,000. So looking in the first column, 85,000 falls between 82,501 and 157,500. So you first want to find that row. And then follow that row, and this is what you do. So it's $14,089.50 plus 24% of the amount that went over 82,500. This 14,000, they figured the other levels already for you. So it's $14,089.50 plus 24% of the amount that went over. To find the amount that went over, take the 85,000 that Jill made and subtract the 8250. We subtracted the 8250 because we follow along the fourth row. It said the amount over 82,500. And that's why we subtracted the 82,500. That's what we're going to take the 24% out. So it's not her full pay, even though she got into a 24% bracket. It's only an amount that went into it, not all of it. So it's only the 2,500. $14,689.50. So when they talk about different brackets, you're not paying the whole amount in that bracket, only the part that went into it. So some of it was at 10%, well, 9,525 was at 10%, then the rest was at 12% and then 22%. So they broke it up. We used to have to find each of them, and now they have tables. Try another one. Any questions on that one? So when you're using TurboTax or another tax to file your taxes, this is what they're doing. Of course, they're taking your school write-offs. If you kept track of your books and stuff like that, those are write-offs. And what if she made 35,000? So if she makes 35,000, which row is it in? First, second, third. So look at the first column and see where the 35,000 falls. Well, it's greater than the first one. Falls in the second one. So it's row 2. Well, then go across and it tells you $952.50 plus 12% of the amount over 9,500. So start with the 9,552.50. 12% written as a decimal, and then we have to find the amount that went over. Take how much she made and subtract what they tell you, which is 9,520. Any questions? This, $952.50, if you take 9,525 and multiply it by 10%, you will get this. So they already found that for you. They took 9,525 multiplied by 10% as a decimal and found the $952.50. And then you need to find the part that went over by subtracting it from the 35,000, get 25,470. So the total amount on tax is $4,009.50. Any questions? Yeah, there's only 2 problems in this section. Those who were struggling or were not here Friday, if you want to stay, I will show you how to do the graphs. Those who turned it in and are good, or if you need to see a little more review, that's fine. You can say, same thing with those who are online. If you turn in the group assignment from Friday, then you don't need to stay, but if you want to order a review, online.
One person can put one shirt on. So like I could do.
I'm not gonna, like, if you said ice cream and somehow said ice cream, that's fine.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, so. Weren't here, right?
Yeah.
You have a copy.
Yeah. I already did this thing last week.
Yes, but, some of the students who weren't here, it was hard to follow doing it yourself, so I'm gonna go over it now. So you're good.
So, also on Friday, we have that day. You just said something about Friday.
Those who missed last Friday, but we have class Friday.
Thank you.
Do you have tennis?
No, we're not playing this week. No, we're playing in the spring break.
Okay. So the first thing it says is to go to Desmos. What I would do first before you go over to Desmos, bring this up. It's under, group assignment. Okay, so then you only want to highlight the number. These are our total overall grades for both of my classes, so you can compare yours. But, you want to, you know what, before we do that, make sure you enable editing. Then you want to highlight the numerical data. Just the numerical. And then, hit Control C. Then we're going to open, and you want to use Google Docs. It doesn't like Safari. I didn't mean Google Docs. I meant Google Chrome for your search engine. Go to desmos.com. And click on graphing calculator. So I went to desmos.com and then I clicked on graphing calculator and this comes up. Right there? Okay, now type L equal. And then Control V and it should put all the data there. There should be 66 elements. Then it asks you, find the mean, median, standard deviation. Hit enter, and we're down to the next one. You want to use all lowercase, type MEAN. And then put your L in parentheses, and it gives you your mean.
See, I made that so much more complicated.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Oh my goodness.
And then median.
Oh my. Wow, I really tried to do something.
Standard deviation.
Is it span?
It's just STDEV.
D.
Now, range, it doesn't have range, but it has max and min. Oh, it won't let me expand. Oh, wait. No, let me just grab. So to find the range, we do max minus min. Not too bad.
No, not at all.
So, we're gonna skip the Excel one. We'll just stay in here and do the other two for Desmos first. And that's the box plot. You want to type it as one word. And then parentheses your L. Now, it's not showing on the screen, but it also asks you to, uncheck the exclude outliers. And then also, I offsetted it by a -3. And I used type -3. Okay, so let me find it for you. To get it to show up on your graph, see the little magnifying glass? When you click that, it will center it for you. Now, if we do -3, it moves it down below, and we can have our histogram up on top. I also did this one -3. Or not -3, just 3. Because I had this picture. And then
What month is it?
yours might look a little different. Normally mine looks longer. I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, this is going all the way to 100. Yours might look a little different, but width-wise, yeah, that's what mine looked like. I don't know why that's doing that now. I think because I zoomed something. But it's still correct. And it might straighten out when I do my histogram. So for the next one, when you do the histogram. Oh, I spelled it wrong. That's why I did that. There. So the histogram, now notice they're so narrow because the bin width is a 1. Make it a 10.
That's weird.
And then click your magnifying glass to center it again. Oh, that looks good.
Oh, nice.
So then you can take a picture of all of that.
And that's that.
That's that part.
Wait, look. I was trying to do, I like.
If you want.
Put it like.
Oh,
With that. After it, because I think I pressed enter.
Maybe.
And then.
Yeah, so you can take a picture of that. So that's 2 of your graphs. And then, yeah, then we'll go back to Excel. But we're okay with this one? Okay, so for Excel, we're doing the qualitative data. You need to fill in the frequency table,
Oh, I know.
and it's just counting. There's 44 A's. I think it was 11 B's.
Yeah.
Okay.
11,513.
1, 3? Or was it 515? 515.
44, all of it. Hey, that's what I had yesterday, but don't. Don't count me on that.
44,11,515. 1, 2.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So to do your pie chart and your box plot, you want to highlight this whole thing. And then go to insert. And this one does box plot.
Does anyone mind keeps changing my 44 to 44.00?
No, that's fine.
Where do you find box plot? Wait, is it
Okay,
just?
so I went to insert. And then this one here
Right.
and the first.
Okay.
And then you can double click on the graph and it'll bring different versions up depending on what you want your project to look like. There's one that puts the number on it. That one should go. But however you want. Then click somewhere and re-highlight to get your pie chart. Insert and pie is this one here. You can get percents in it if you want. Oh, we do have to do a normal curve also.
Highlight it again.
Yep, highlight again and then do the pie.
That's awesome.
Number 2 on the list, you have to draw a normal curve. By hand. I couldn't find a program besides a statistics one that's a lot of money. So that one, right? Yeah, right. So you want the percents under the curve, those are always the same. Mean goes in the middle, and if you don't want to work with decimals, we just put 8 cents. And then I think with the standard deviation was 16. So then the mean goes in the middle, and then we just, standard deviation was 16, so we add by 16. And this way you subtract.
So you just solve it.
And so for those who are online, this is your normal curve. These are the percents under it. And then you just put your mean, which should be 87 in the middle, and then add by 16 and subtract by 16. Those who are online, do you have any questions?